The letter was dated November 8, 2022. It came in a standard white envelope with a return address in Nashville. The sender was identified as Heartland Federal Bank, Asset Recovery Group, Southeastern Portfolio Operations. Walter James Mabry found it in his mailbox on a Wednesday afternoon, along with a seed catalog and an electric bill. He brought all three inside and set them on the kitchen table and made a cup of coffee before he sat down to read. The letter was 4 paragraphs long. The first paragraph named the property, parcel 047-C, Bledsoe County, Tennessee, 12 acres, rural Route 4. The second paragraph stated that the outstanding balance on loan number 8814-TN was $89,300, that Walter Mabry had been in arrears for 7 consecutive months, and that foreclosure proceedings had been initiated under Tennessee Code Annotated 35-5101. He had 30 days to cure the default in full or surrender the property. The third paragraph provided a phone number. The fourth was a standard legal disclosure. He read it once. He set it down and looked out the window at the south field. 12 acres. The last 12 of the 87 he had assembled across a working life of 47 years. He had held on to those 12 through everything. He sat there without moving for a long time. He was 74 years old. He had never missed a payment in his life until the year Dorothy died. He picked the letter up again. He read the second paragraph one more time. The number $89,300 sat on the page in plain type. Then he set it down, got up from the table, and went to the basement. He did not know yet that $89,300 had been wrong since 1983. The bank had been calculating incorrectly since 1983. The original error was $4,180, applied in April of that year during a loan recalibration, and it had compounded forward for 39 years across every subsequent payment he had ever made. The only person who had ever suspected it was a woman named Dorothy Mabry, who had written a note in pencil on a piece of lined paper and filed it in a steel box in that basement, and who had died of a stroke in September of 2018, 4 years before the letter arrived. Walter James Mabry was 74 years old, and everything he owned had been built by hand, with no inheritance and no head start, and no one who could afford to give him either. His father had spent 29 years at a textile mill outside Dayton, Tennessee, and died at 61 with $400 in a savings account and a credit union note he had not finished paying. Walter was 23 when he buried him. That same spring, he went to work as a hired hand on the Hensley operation east of Pikeville, cattle, hay, some row cropping, and stayed for 4 years. He learned everything the land and the men on it were willing to teach. He lived in a rented room above a hardware store and ate simply and kept his wages in a savings account he did not touch. He moved to a larger operation in Grundy County as a field foreman in 1971. He stayed 7 years. He missed 9 Christmases. He missed his own birthday 6 years running. He did not regard any of this as sacrifice. It was arithmetic. He wanted land. Land cost money. Money required time. It was not more complicated than that. In 1975, at the age of 27, he bought his first parcel, 40 acres of mixed pasture and woodlot on the east side of Bledsoe County, 1 mile north of the Sequatchie River. The purchase price was $24,000. He put down $6,000, every dollar he had saved in 7 years, and took a variable rate farm loan from the First Consolidated Agricultural Bank of Pikeville at 14.5%. He signed the papers on a Thursday afternoon. He was back at work on the land by Saturday morning. He married Dorothy Crane in 1977. She taught 4th grade in Pikeville. She was methodical and patient. She balanced the farm's books to the penny on the first of every month without being asked and without making a production of it. From the day they married until the day she died, she kept every financial record the farm produced. Every payment stub, every bank statement, every amortization schedule, every county notice, every piece of correspondence from any institution that had ever sent one. She organized them in gray steel fireproof boxes, 1 box per 5-year period, labeled on the spine in her careful handwriting. She stacked them on shelves Walter had built in the basement in 1979. She filled 11 boxes across 41 years. Through the 1980s, Walter added land when he could. 22 acres in 1981, 18 more in 1986, 7 acres of bottomland in 1991 from an estate sale. At his peak, he farmed 87 acres of Bledsoe County. The hard years came steadily. A drought in 1993 cost him 2 cattle herds. A barn fire in 1999 took $34,000 in equipment and stored hay, uninsured, because he had let the policy lapse one season to make a payment. He sold 15 acres in 1994. He sold 12 more in 2001. He sold another 11 in 2008 when a knee injury kept him off full labor for 8 months and the medical bills arrived in batches. He kept the original 40 acres, the first ones, the ones he had bought with $6,000 in 1975, and he held a smaller 12-acre parcel adjacent to them through everything that followed. Dorothy died on September 14, 2018. He was on his own after that. He managed for 2 more years. A wet spring in 2021 cut his hay yield by 40%. A well pump failed in September, and the repair came to $11,400. He paid what he could. He fell 7 months behind. The letter came in November of 2022. Heartland Federal Bank's Asset Recovery Group, Southeastern Portfolio Operations, sent a representative to rural Route 4 on December 3, 2022. His name was Marcus Webb. He was 31 years old, had an MBA from Vanderbilt, and had been with the bank's regional division for 3 years. He drove a black SUV and carried a leather briefcase and arrived exactly on time. Walter's neighbor, Jim Calloway, had driven Walter to the pharmacy that morning and stayed for coffee. He was still at the kitchen table when Marcus Webb knocked on the door. Webb sat down across from Walter and explained the bank's position in clear, measured language. The outstanding balance was $89,300. The arrears were $14,200. The bank had a fiduciary obligation to its portfolio. There were structured options: a short sale, a deed in lieu of foreclosure, a payment plan contingent on a cure schedule. But the foreclosure proceeding was active and would continue unless the full default was resolved within the original 30-day window. Walter listened to all of it. Then he told Marcus Webb that the number was wrong, that it had been wrong since 1983, that his wife had kept the original loan documents and the bank's own recalibration notice from 1983, and that the calculation in that notice did not match the terms in the original loan agreement. Marcus Webb looked at him. Then he looked at the kitchen, the old table, the coffee cups, Jim Calloway sitting quietly at the far end. He said, "Mr. Mabry, I understand this has been a difficult period, but personal records don't change what's on our books. I've reviewed your file thoroughly. The figures we're working from are accurate." Jim Calloway looked at his coffee. Marcus Webb spent 2 hours and 14 minutes at that kitchen table. He left a packet of structured exit options and his business card. He drove back toward Nashville. He had not asked to see the boxes. The boxes were on wooden shelves in the basement, shelves Walter had built in 1979 from 2x4s and lag screws, still square, still solid. 11 gray steel boxes, spines labeled in Dorothy's handwriting, 1975 to 1980, 1981 to 1985, 1986 to 1990, 1991 to 1995, and so on, across to the last one, labeled 2016 to 2018, in letters that were slightly shakier than the others, though still precise. Walter had not opened any of them since she died. He went downstairs the evening after Marcus Webb left. He found the box labeled 1981 to 1985. He carried it upstairs to the kitchen table. The latch was stiff. He worked it with both hands until it gave. Inside, hanging folders, one per year, tabbed in Dorothy's hand. He went to the 1983 tab. He found the payment stubs for that year, 12 of them, one per month. He found the bank statements. He found a copy of the original 1975 loan agreement. and behind it, in a manila envelope, she had labeled Rate Reset 1983 in block letters with a red marker. He found the document from the bank, the variable rate recalibration notice from First Consolidated Agricultural Bank of Pikeville, dated April 14, 1983. 2 pages. It showed the bank's calculation of the new adjusted principal balance, the revised interest rate, and the new monthly payment schedule going forward. Clipped to the notice with a paper clip that had rusted brown over 39 years, but still held, was a piece of lined notebook paper, Dorothy's handwriting in pencil. April 14, 1983. Bank says new balance is $19,840. Walter says it should be closer to $15,600. He says they're charging interest on the wrong base. Keep this notice. Keep the original agreement. Keep everything. Walter read it once. He sat down. He read it again, slower. He called an attorney the next morning. His name was Charles Prudhomme. He had practiced agricultural finance law out of Cookeville, Tennessee for 31 years before reducing his caseload at 67. A neighbor had given Walter the name and the number. Prudhomme took the call, listened without interrupting for 12 minutes, and then said he was skeptical. Calculation disputes with banks were among the most difficult cases to bring, he said. Courts generally deferred to institutional accounting absent clear, documented proof of a specific error. The passage of 39 years made the burden heavier, not lighter. Walter drove to Cookeville the next day with the 1981 to 1985 box in the passenger seat. He set it on Prudhomme's desk and opened it. He put the 1983 recalibration notice on the desk and Dorothy's note beside it, and the original 1975 loan agreement opened to page 3. Page 3 of the 1975 loan agreement contained the interest calculation clause for variable rate reset periods. It specified in plain language that interest during recalibration periods was to be calculated on a 360-day banker's year. The bank's April 1983 recalibration notice had applied a 365-day year. Prudhomme read the clause. He read the recalibration notice. He picked up a calculator. He ran the 1983 numbers. A 365-day year versus a 360-day year on a $19,840 principal at 11.75% for the reset period produced a difference of $4,180 in overstated principal at the moment of recalibration. He compounded that $4,180 forward at the loan's own stated rate across 39 years of subsequent payment history. He set the calculator down. He picked it up again. He ran it a second time. The compounded overstatement was $31,400. The correct outstanding balance on loan 8814TN as of the November 2022 foreclosure notice was not $89,300. It was $57,900. The correct arrears were not $14,200. They were $8,400, an amount Walter had savings sufficient to cure. Prudhomme set the calculator down for the last time. "Walter," he said. He looked up from the desk. "Your wife caught this in 1983. She wrote it down the day the notice came." Walter looked at the pencil note on the desk. He did not say anything. Prudhomme filed an 11-page brief with Heartland Federal's legal department on January 9, 2023. It was addressed to the bank's general counsel. It attached 4 documents: the original 1975 loan agreement with page 3 highlighted, the April 14, 1983 recalibration notice, a table comparing the bank's calculation against the contract-specified calculation at each recalibration point from 1983 through 2022, and a final summary column showing the compounded discrepancy of $31,400 as of the foreclosure filing date. The brief requested that the bank correct the outstanding balance on loan 8814TN, withdraw the foreclosure proceeding on parcel 047C, and acknowledge the accumulated overpayment in writing within 21 days. Heartland Federal's legal department called Prudhomme's office at 8:47 in the morning on January 11th, 31 hours after the filing arrived. Prudhomme noted the time. That speed told him everything he needed to know about whether the bank's own attorneys believed their position could survive what was in those 11 pages. He did not call Walter that day. He waited for the written response. It came on January 19th on Heartland Federal letterhead. The foreclosure proceeding on parcel 047-C, Bledsoe County, was hereby withdrawn. The outstanding balance on loan 8814-TN had been recalculated per the terms of the original 1975 loan agreement and was revised to $57,900. The bank acknowledged a calculation discrepancy originating in the April 1983 variable rate reset. A credit of $31,400 against the outstanding principal was confirmed. Given that credit, current arrears on the account were $0. A separate payment of $67,400 would be issued to Walter James Mabry as settlement for wrongful foreclosure initiation and related damages. The bank requested a mutual confidentiality provision. Prudhomme called Walter when the letter arrived. He read him the numbers over the phone in order without commentary. Walter did not speak for a moment. Then he said, "She knew." "She did," Prudhomme said. "She knew the day that notice came." Walter drove home from Cookville on a gray January afternoon. He came in through the back door. He made himself something to eat. He sat at the kitchen table for a while and looked out at the south field. Then he went to the basement. The 1981 to 1985 box was still on the kitchen table where he had left it the week before. He carried it back downstairs. He set it on the shelf where it had been for 39 years. He opened the lid one more time. He found the 1983 folder. He took out the recalibration notice and Dorothy's pencil note, still clipped together with the rusted paperclip. He read her words one more time. "Walter says it should be closer to $15,600. He says they're charging interest on the wrong base. Keep this notice. Keep the original agreement. Keep everything." He unclipped the note from the notice. He held it for a moment. "You were right," he said. He was not speaking to the room. "You were right, and you wrote it down and you kept it." He refolded the note exactly as it had been folded, twice lengthwise, then in thirds, the same folds it had held for 39 years. He clipped it back to the recalibration notice with the rusted paperclip. He returned both to the 1983 folder. He closed the hanging folder. He closed the box. He worked the stiff latch until it caught. He turned off the basement light. He went back upstairs. The 12 acres were still his. The boxes were still on the shelves. Dorothy Mabry kept 41 years of farm records in 11 steel boxes in a basement in Bledsoe County, Tennessee. She kept them because she believed that numbers do not change because an institution says they do, and that the difference between what is written in a contract and what a bank claims in a letter is worth writing down on a piece of notebook paper, even if no one acts on it for 39 years. She was right in 1983. The record proved it in 2023. The gap between those two dates was $31,400. The gap between the bank's position and Walter's was $67,400. The bank called 31 hours after the brief was filed. Here's what I want to know. If you had been sitting at that kitchen table in December with $89,300 claimed against you and 30 days on the clock, would you have taken the bank's structured exit offer or gone looking in the basement? Leave it in the comments. I'll read every one. Subscribe. Next time, Carol Prescott, 69 years old, Burke County, North Carolina. A timber rights deed her mother recorded in 1961, and a clause so precise the county's own attorney needed 11 days to accept that it was real. We'll see you there.